morning, students. Before I begin this technical description, hopefully I won't have to do this 4 and 5 times to get it right. The settings aspect of this instrument that I refer to in my note to Mr. Bob Cabot. Hi, Bob is one in which, like many things I do, it's off in that it's something others wouldn't think of. I was born this way, I'm proud of it. When I was a young boy, at the age of 8, I had a chubby little belly from eating too much ice cream, childhood habit. I came from a good family, both sides. My mother was educated by a Castilian Spanish grandmother who adopted her. My mother was a blonde. I don't know why I mentioned that. My grandmother was of course Roman Catholic. She came to the U.S. from Spain with her sister. She married an American author who was from the state of Tennessee that she met in New Orleans. His name was Walter Parker. They lived on Moss Street across from the bayou, the Irish bayou, in a beautiful home. And Momo was her nickname. Her real name was Anita Hernandez. I've also read her Spanish name as Anita Sanchez. I'm not sure which it is. I think it's Hernandez. Momo sent my mother to various boarding schools for girls. Like all old-fashioned Catholics, she expected my mom to be a virgin when she married, and she was, or so I've been told. What a bizarre, by today's standards of modernism, that's bizarre in a way, but that's how it was, and she was. She was almost 10 years younger than my father when they married. My father was from a Scott family whose last name was Ewing. They're connected to the McLachlan, M-C-L-A-C-H-L-A-N, Scottish clan, which find themselves on Loch Fyne, F-Y-N-E, in southwestern Scotland. The McLachlans were originally called Loch Lane, and Loch, of course, is the old Gaelic word for lake or body of water. The McLachlan clan, it is said, historically formed when an Irish prince from feudal times near Dublin, whose last name was O'Neill. One of these princes met and married a Norwegian princess from the very southern tip of Norway. And I have this princess's name in my computer, and some of her father, who was a king, her grandfather, who was also a Norwegian king, and her great-grandfather, who was a Norwegian king. And they are paintings and drawings of these men in life. I have them. My father's physical features reflect Norway as much as anything else. But they also reflect, very much so, almost to the point of being disturbing. There was a Roman Caesar who left office in Rome in 79 AD, which was the year that Mount Vesuvius erupted and destroyed Herculaneum, I think I said that correctly, and Pompeii, which of course was the location of the famous Pink Floyd film done by Mabry, the director. All right, back to Dad. Dad looked, there's one bust of Vespasianus, which was this Roman Caesar's name, that left office in 79 AD. It is a carbon copy of my father. I mean, the nose is identical. The profile is identical. The shape of the chin, the earlobes, the ears, the eyes. And we're talking about a Caesar that lived 2,000 years ago. How can that be? Is it a coincidence? When you see a likeness like this, that's almost a carbon copy, it's hard to believe that it's a coincidence. But I don't understand all of the finer points of genetics. It is true that England was the northernmost Roman settlement, so it is possible. My father's family came out of the Ewing clan. They came out of the Tolmans, T-O-U-L-M-I-N. They were out of Birmingham, England. They're Saxon. The Hunters, which were Scot and Saxon family, we also are them. There are others that I'm overlooking. Those are three of them right there. And then this Norwegian connection as well. England, like the U.S., though not as exaggerated a way, is a mixture, a composite of Roman settlers, the original Brits, which are now the Welsh, the Saxons, which came from the tribes of what are today Denmark, northern Germany, southern Sweden, and southern Norway. And you also, of course, have the Normans. My last name, Brown, is a Norman English name. So Dad comes from that kind of a background. He was 9 years older than my mother. Like his two brothers, he enlisted voluntarily to serve in World War II. He chose the Army Air Corps because he said he felt it would bring him home safely, had a better chance of surviving the war, which was the thinking of many military people. But as it turned out, ironically, the Army Air Corps was one of the most dangerous jobs in the war. Between 1942 and 1944, almost 50,000 American airmen had been shot and killed in those B-17 bombers over unfriendly skies in the war. All right, so that's my dad's background. And when both my parents grew up in New Orleans, I was raised in Shreveport because our family business interests were in Shreveport. The business interest included the communications industries, radio industry, KWKH, newspaper, which was a big deal in those years, the Shreveport Times. We owned a couple of television stations in Arkansas. We were not a national corporation, but we were financially successful. We sold our corporate holdings to Gannett in 1977 for $96 million, as I recall. When Dad lived in New Orleans, he told me that, I'm going to segue here, he told me he dated the Werlines, one of the Werline girls. Werline's Music in New Orleans is an institution. It's one of the finest music organizations to sell equipment, pianos, electric guitars, you name it. The finest quality, the finest standards you could possibly ask for anywhere